The bar was loud that night, laughter and country music echoing off the walls. But all of it stopped when a group of Marines decided to mock a quiet black woman, sitting alone in the corner. They saw only a civilian, someone out of place in their world of war stories and medals. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have guessed, was that the woman they were ridiculing once commanded men like them in the field. And when one of them made the mistake of asking her what she knew about combat, she looked up slowly, eyes cold as steel, and spoke two words that made the entire bar fall silent. Her call sign. If you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button and show some love to them, because this story will remind you never to underestimate quiet strength and never to disrespect a true warrior. It was a Friday night in Jacksonville, North Carolina, Marine country. The streets around the base were buzzing with life. Bars glowed with neon lights. Bikers rumbled down the avenue, and the sound of laughter mixed with the clinking of beer glasses. Inside McCready's Tavern, a popular spot near Camp Lejeune, a group of Marines crowded around a table celebrating the end of a long training rotation. The air was thick with bravado and beer foam. At the far end of the bar, sitting quietly in a leather jacket and jeans, was Captain Maya Coleman, though no one there knew her name yet. She was a striking black woman in her late 30s, with short-cropped hair and an athletic build that spoke of years in uniform. Her posture was straight, her eyes sharp but calm. She wasn't there to be noticed. She was there to breathe, to remember what it felt like to be just a person. Not a soldier, not an officer, not the one everyone looked to for orders. She'd served 15 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, former Force Recon, one of the few women and the only black woman to lead a reconnaissance team into active combat zones. Her call sign, Phoenix, had become a whispered legend among those who'd served under her. She'd survived a helicopter crash in Iraq, pulled two of her men from the wreckage, and led them through 40 miles of hostile desert to safety. But now she was off duty, a veteran back home, and all she wanted tonight was a cold beer and silence. Unfortunately, silence wasn't what she got. At a nearby table, for young Marines, fresh faces, new tattoos, full of swagger, notice her. The one with a buzz cut, Corporal Jake Miller, nudged his buddy and laughed. "Hey, check out the tough girl over there. She looks like she's waiting for someone who'll never show." His friend, PFC Riley, grinned. "Maybe she's one of those fake vet types. You know, wears a leather jacket and acts like she's seen combat." Maya didn't react. She'd heard worse. In war zones, from men twice as cruel and half as brave. The bartender, Carl, an older man who'd been serving Marines for decades, shot the group a warning look. "Easy, boys. You don't want to start something you can't finish." Miller smirked. "Relax, old man. We're just having fun." He stood, beer in hand, and swaggered over to Maya's end of the bar. "Hey there, sweetheart. Didn't see you around base. You new in town?" Maya took a slow sip of her beer before answering. "No, I've been around longer than you've been shaving." The other Marines snickered. Miller grinned wider. "Oh yeah? You a Marine too?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she placed her drink down gently, turned to face him fully, and said, "Was..." He laughed. "Was... So what? You do admin or something? File paperwork for the real Marines." A couple of the men at the next table chuckled, clinking bottles. Maya's eyes didn't flinch. "No," she said quietly. "I led them." The room seemed to shrink for a second, but Miller was too drunk to catch the tone. "Led them, huh? You led Marines? That's cute." He mock saluted. "Well, thank you for your service, ma'am." His tone dripped with sarcasm. Carl shook his head. "Miller, you best walk away." But the young corporal didn't. "Come on, I'm just asking questions," he said, leaning closer to Maya. "You ever even see combat? Or just watch it on CNN?" Maya's patience thinned. She looked at him steadily. "You ever been to Al Anbar Province, 2008? He frowned, caught off guard. "No, why?" "Because I have." The table behind him went silent. A few older veterans at the counter turned to listen. They'd heard that tone before, the kind that comes from someone who's seen the worst and lived to tell about it. Miller laughed nervously. All right, you win. So what was your rank, Captain America? Captain, she said evenly. United States Marine Corps. Call sign Phoenix. The laughter died. The name Phoenix meant something, even to the new generation. Miller's face drained of color as whispers spread around the room. One of the older Marines, Gunnery Sergeant Lawson, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, stood up slowly. Ma'am, he said, his voice respectful now. Are you Captain Maya Coleman? Phoenix Coleman? She gave a small nod. Lawson turned to the younger Marines. You idiots have any idea who you're talking to? This woman's a legend. She saved a whole recon team in Iraq after their bird got shot down. She's the reason I'm standing here today. The air shifted instantly. The once arrogant Marines went pale. Miller's jaw dropped. Wait, you're her? The Phoenix. Maya picked up her beer again. That's what they used to call me. But that was a long time ago. No one spoke. The music playing in the background felt distant now. The mockery had evaporated into guilt and shame. Lawson continued, his voice firm. You boys think being Marines about talking loud and acting tough? She's the reason our Corps means something. She earned that Eagle, Globe, and Anchor in ways you can't even imagine. Miller swallowed hard. Ma'am, I didn't know. Maya looked at him for a long moment, her gaze both steady and sad. That's the thing about respect, Corporal. You shouldn't have to know someone's story to show it. He lowered his head, muttering, Yes, ma'am. Carl quietly refilled her drink, sliding the glass across with a faint smile. On the house, Captain. She nodded her thanks, but the night was far from over, because outside, things were about to take another turn. As Maya stepped out of the bar later that night, the cool Carolina air brushed her face. She pulled her jacket tighter, ready to walk home. But just as she reached the corner, she heard Ray's voices. Miller and his buddies stood near the alley, and this time they weren't alone. A group of locals, rough-looking men, were hassling them, shouting slurs, angry about base boys taking over their bar scene. One of the locals shoved Riley hard against the wall. You Marines think you own this town. Before Miller could react, Maya stepped in. That's enough, she said sharply. The locals turned. What? Now we got some lady hero trying to play peacemaker. Maya took a step forward, calm but firm. You don't want to do this. The biggest man sneered. And who's going to stop me? You! That was his mistake. In less than 3 seconds, Maya moved, fast and precise. She caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted it, and dropped him with a knee to the gut. The second man lunged. She sidestepped, used his own momentum, and flipped him over onto the pavement. The remaining ones froze, eyes wide. Miller stared, stunned. Holy, she's trained. Lawson, who had followed him out, grinned faintly. You have no idea. The locals stumbled away, groaning and cursing, leaving the Marines in stunned silence. Maya looked at them one last time. Next time you see a woman sitting alone, remember this moment. Respect isn't given, it's earned. But decency? That's just being human. She turned and walked down the street, the dim streetlights catching Marine Corps insignia subtly embroidered on her jacket sleeve. The younger Marine stood quietly, still processing what they'd just witnessed. Miller finally said, She saved our asses. Lawson nodded. Yeah, again. Word of the night spread fast. By the next morning, everyone on base was talking about the woman at McCready's, the Phoenix, back in town. A few days later, Maya received a call from an old commander. Heard you had quite the evening, Captain, he chuckled. Just handled it like we always do, sir, she replied. Well, he said, if you're ever thinking of training the next generation, we could use that fire again. She smiled faintly. Maybe, but for now, I think they learned enough from one night. Back at the bar, a framed photo appeared on the wall, a picture of Maya in uniform, taken years earlier in Iraq. Underneath it, a small plaque read, Captain Maya Phoenix Coleman, Leadership, Honor, and Courage. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Every Marine who came through McCready's saw that plaque, and those who'd mocked her that night, they carried that lesson for the rest of their lives. Because that evening wasn't just about one woman being disrespected. It was about what happens when arrogance meets experience and ignorance meets strength. It was a story about a warrior who'd been through hell and come back stronger, not to fight for recognition, but to remind a new generation what it truly means to wear the uniform of the United States Marine Corps. And though she never asked for attention, Maya Coleman, Phoenix, became a legend once more, not for what she did overseas, but for what she taught at home. That courage has no gender, no color, only heart.